Okay, everybody, welcome back to Talk of the Now podcast. And today I've got a guest on who is a new member of the Atlanta Braves family. I've got my Atlanta Braves hat on in honor of the Los Bravos, my favorite team, as many of you know that listen to my show and the podcast. And today I've got a special guest on, Mr. Kevin Kraus. Is that how I pronounce your last name, Mr.
You got it
Kevin?
right the first
Okay,
try. Good job.
great.
I've heard, I've
Kevin,
heard
how are you?
all kinds of pronunciations on that. Yeah.
Well, it almost looks like Klaus in a way, you know.
Well, I've heard floss, cross. Yeah, I've heard all kinds. You name it, I've heard it.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
So how are you? And big news. I'll let you give the announcement. Kevin is the new voice of the Braves, and if you could kind of tell us what your new job is here for Atlanta.
Yeah, sure. I was named the new Braves PA announcer officially, I guess, last Friday. They told me a couple of days earlier, but it is my job on game days to announce batters to the box uh, in the stadium, announce certain advertisements, send mid inning contest down to the MC, which is going to be Otis this year. He's replacing Mark Owens. So I'll be doing announcements in the stadium. Some folks get um, radio play-by-play, TV play-by-play, and PA announcer mixed up. I'm just the guy in the stadium, just announcing batters to the box. That's all I do.
Right. Well, congratulations on that. By the way,
Thank you very much.
that is exciting, and I'm sure for many boys, and probably including myself, when I was about 6 or 7 years old, that's like, oh, to be a Braves PA announcer, or I'm sure many girls as well, young
Yes.
ladies probably dream of doing that as well. To one day be a Major League Baseball announcer is just right up there. I'm an old school baseball fan. I assume that you have been a longtime baseball fan as well,
Absolutely, my entire life.
and one of my favorite documentaries of all time is Baseball by the Ken Burns series, Baseball. If you consider yourself a baseball fan, I highly recommend watching that, by the way, because anybody out there, it's just to get that history of baseball and to hear those old voices of baseball. And I would imagine, especially before the radio times, the PA announcer was sort of the voice for the team in a way, if you will, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Especially when and then you touched on right on it, like when games weren't on TV. I mean, you either listen to the game on the radio, so you know who the radio announcer was, or you went to the game itself and you know the PA guy, so you know one of two voices, the radio guy and the PA guy. So I agree that the PA announcer has been a part of baseball for a very very long time. Very honored to be the newest part of that for sure.
Well, definitely congratulations on that. What uh, what are you most excited about looking forward to this new season?
Just to get the season started, man.
Yeah.
uh, you know, I submitted the application back in November, so it's been a very long process. And now that it's done, and now that the deed, it's complete, I'm just ready to get the season started. People keep asking me, are you nervous? Are you excited? I mean, I'm certainly excited, and I'm sure I'm going to be nervous.
Right.
The closer that we get to the actual, opening day against the Padres, April 6th. But once the game starts, it's just a baseball game. I mean, it's the same as if you're calling a game in the little leagues, or if you're calling a game in Truist Park in the
Hmm.
major leagues. It's just a baseball game. You're just having fun. That's what I'm most looking forward to, is just getting the season started, getting the fun going, man.
Absolutely. Well, let's back up then a little bit. Kind of lead us, if you will, sort of give us a few second or few minute bio here on you, and tell us where you came from and how you got to where you are at this point.
A minute bio, okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
however
I,
long. We don't have a time limit. If you want to take
no, no,
five, 10.
the less that I talk about myself, the better. I'd much rather hear you talk.
Oh man.
But I've been the PA announcer for the Gwinnett Stripers for the last 10 seasons. That's been the majority of my work. I've filled in other places. I think it's been said in the papers that I've been filling in at Mercedes-Benz Stadium for a few years now, ever since it opened. I've done a few United games, one Falcons game, one Chick-fil-A Bowl from time to time. I did some hockey for a while, Atlanta Gladiators for 5 seasons, and some lacrosse and some rugby. I currently do rugby ATL They play at Silverbacks Park near I-285. So I stay busy. And going back to the Stripers, it's been really cool calling those games for the last decade, because you get to see the future go up, through Gwinnett, and it's really, really nice to see them get called up and do well, because you feel like a proud parent whenever they get called up and do well. So it's been really, really cool calling the Stripers the last 10 seasons.
Yeah, I imagine 2 years from now, when a guy comes up that you were announcing for last year, that's going to be one of those moments for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I felt it last year, and I know. Didn't we have like a 2-week stretch last year? I'm thinking of the Miami, a series in Miami for some reason, where we started 4 starting pitchers that started the year with the Stripers in a row, and they all won. I think Elder was one of them. Ian Anderson came up and pitched a good game, all back to back to back, and that was really, really cool. Things like that make you feel really like a proud parent, like I said, when Stripers get called up and do well.
Mm-hmm. When was your first, when and what was your first gig in this business?
2007. I was a sophomore at Georgia College in Milledgeville. Go Bobcats!
Oh wow, okay.
I was looking for something to do to make a little extra money, as most college kids do. Something to pay for food, and rather than work, wait tables like everyone else is doing, I wanted to do something with sports. I've always loved sports, so who wouldn't want to do that instead of a wait table? So I don't quite remember how I was introduced to the athletic director at Georgia College, but he needed someone to call a women's soccer match. So that's what I did, and he needed me to play music too. So I had nothing but a little iPod Nano. So I bought my iPod Nano and sat under a little tent with a little microphone, and I announced goals and played pregame music on an iPod Nano, and that was my first gig. I thought there maybe were 100 people there, probably less, but
right.
I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
But you got to cut your teeth somewhere,
You do, yeah.
Part of my overall theme of my podcast, when I do interviews and talk to people with what I think are interesting stories, is to explain to younger people, and especially people because nowadays, like you said, people, it seems like dreams can be so far off from doing what you want to do one day. Learning other people's stories gives you perspective on how to get where you want to get a lot of times, because somebody says, okay, this guy, he's, I mean, how in the world is he a Braves, play-by-play guy? How can I get there? Well, you have to go back in steps, and you have to talk to people to figure out how that actually happens. Because there's no book on these things. There's no manual on how to get there, right?
Yeah, totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You got to start somewhere. And for me, it was in Milledgeville at a women's soccer match with, I don't even know if there was 100 people there.
Right.
It's been a long time coming since then.
I have there's a guy that I mentioned, I've interviewed him as well, Ken Coleman of the Ken Coleman Show. He is a Dave Ramsey personality, Dave Ramsey, the financial guy, if you've ever heard of him. He does a show all about careers, and he decided that he wanted to get into broadcasting at about the age of 32. And so he talks about how he basically paid a guy to let him have his own show on a radio station. And his first ever broadcasting gig, if you will, was where he went to somewhere in Habersham County to do a high school football game for the internet. He said it was just the only people listening were his mom and his wife, and that was it, So I think that can kind of be an interesting example of something similar.
I mean, sometimes talk about humble beginnings,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But the Stripers, though, is a cool deal. I think. When did you say you got the Stripers gig? When did that come around?
2013. I had graduated college. I transferred to Georgia, by the way.
Okay.
That's where I graduated college, was UGA. And I went to school to be a meteorologist, actually. And when I graduated, I quickly learned that I was not prepared. Because I was scrambling, applying to places all over the country. hoping they would take me on as a meteorologist, and that just wasn't happening. It's not like I did poorly in school. I just hadn't done enough as far as to prepare to get a job after college. So while I was waiting to hear something from a TV station, um, I was looking for ways to practice getting on a microphone and just practice speaking to people. You know, whether it be on camera or on a microphone doing something. So I actually took a job with a local entertainment company, just doing like trivia nights, karaoke nights, bingo nights, things like that. Anything that would put me on a microphone speaking to people live. So that's what I was doing for about a year or so. And then um, I was looking for more odd jobs to do while I was waiting to hear back about a full-time job. So the Gwinnett Braves, as they were at the time, posted a position for someone to play music during games. So I applied for that, and I was hired on the spot during the interview. But then the person that interviewed me listened to me speak, and she said, "Are you aware that we have PA announcer tryouts coming up?" Because it just so happened that they let the previous person go. So I said, "No, I didn't. I didn't know there were PA announcer tryouts, but I do have a little bit of experience. I did it in college for a little bit." So I showed up and beat out about 30 people, and the rest is history.
Oh wow. So okay, so that was almost like we're just saying, that was kind of just a stumbling into the
It
job,
was
if you will.
total luck, total whatever you want to call it, serendipity.
Uh-huh.
It just so happened that when I applied for a totally different position, that they had an open PA spot, or else none of this might have ever happened.
Wow. And that's a great testimony to me of putting yourself out there. You know, just kind of
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
um
anyone that knows me and that knew me in middle high school, they would have never. They're shocked that I'm doing this right now.
shy, huh?
Total shy kid, total quiet, shy kid. I was a marching band guy, kept to myself, got my work done, did marching band, went home.
Ah. What who was your alma mater for high school?
Shiloh High School, go Generals. I graduated high school in 06.
Okay, so you would have been like a class of '09 or something from Georgia, I guess.
Class of 11. I did the 5-year route.
Ah, nice. Yes, of course. Yes, that's okay. I had a friend who did I was a Georgia Southern alumni, and I had a buddy that did a 7-year program there in I was a print major and he did a print major as well, but he did not get a doctorate in it. He just got his bachelor's degree in it.
Listen, there were some times I wish I had done 7 years too. I mean,
Uh,
college was a ton of fun. I wasn't ready for it to end after 5. That's for sure. I don't blame
right.
them.
Oh man. Well, you know what? To speak of that, I mean, this is kind of we can circle a little bit toward sports here. For those that don't know about it, over there in Stone Mountain off 78, there is a tennis court that was built for the Olympics back in '96, and it has done nothing but sit there and grow weeds for the last 20, 30 years. I don't know if they have any plans for that thing.
Didn't they get rid? I think it's gone now.
Is it gone? Okay.
I think they took it down. My parents worked the tennis when the Olympics were here. They
Oh,
worked. They worked at that center.
wow, that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, it did sit there for a very long time. You're right, but I do think it's gone now.
Hmm. Didn't exactly turn into Wimbledon, huh?
No, it didn't. No, it didn't.
Oh man, that would be
I am,
a
but I
go
am old enough to remember the Olympics. That was really really cool.
Okay, so how old are you now? Are you in your mid 30s ish?
35. So I was
35.
I
Okay.
was 9 at the time the Olympics were here. So I was
Well,
just
yeah.
to have appreciable memories about that.
Well, now that's a dream for a kid to have the Olympics come to your town. You know, when you're like a 9-year
Oh
old.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, I was just old enough to appreciate what was going on, and we went and saw a bunch of it. We did tennis, of course. So we went and saw baseball at Fulton County Stadium. We went and saw volleyball in Athens.
Hmm.
We saw wrestling at the World Congress Center. So we did a lot of that stuff. We took advantage.
Were you able to check out the Olympic Stadium before it was turned into Turner Field?
No, that was one venue that we never got to.
Hmm.
Was the Olympic venue. We did get to see the torch about a week before they brought it to the stadium. I believe it was on Northside Drive about a week before. So that was about as close as I got to the stadium.
Oh wow. Okay. Now, I'm just going to say this because it's all over the news. If anybody looks up your name or looks up, you're a resident of Bethlehem, Georgia.
Bethlehem.
Now, what kind of what kind of commute distance is that going to be for you to get over to the Brave Stadium?
A metropolis that is Bethlehem.
Yes, the holy city, as we like to call it.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'll get back to your question in a second. Have you told people about going to the post office at Christmas time?
Oh no, I've heard about it.
Going to our post office at Christmas time, yeah, people come from all over to stamp their because they have like Bethlehem Christmas stamps at the post office. People come from all over. There's long lines.
Wow.
But going back to your question, it really does depend on the time of day. I would say if you're going from my house over to the stadium on a weekday to get there for a 7:20 game, probably about an hour and a half. But coming home after the game's over, when there's less traffic, probably about 50 minutes. It's not too bad.
For those, I mean, I think only LA people, maybe Houston people might be able to understand this. Getting anywhere in Atlanta is almost forever and a day. And
Certainly.
even if your aunt lives 15 miles away, it's still going to take you 40 minutes to get to her.
Yeah.
During certain times of day.
And I've even got a peach pass now, and that knocks off maybe 5 minutes, but
Right. Yeah.
they need peach pass lanes on 285. That's probably never going to happen. I don't know. Not in my lifetime.
Boy, I tell you, that would be nice. Yeah, I think that's exciting and cool. So back to I guess your job and what you do. Is this your full-time job? Is this your full-time work is doing the announcing stuff?
I wish it was. It'd be nice if it was.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, but I mean, I wish baseball was year round, but it's only half the year, so I've got to have something else to do during the other half of the year. So I do have a full time job currently that I plan at least at first to hang on to. We're going to see how it goes. Finagling the full time schedule with the baseball schedule, and how much sleep it makes me lose. If I can handle the mental and physical stress of it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's just a part time job.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. You mean the announcing is a
Yeah, the
part-time?
Braves, yeah, just a part time job.
I gotcha. The Braves have had. I mean, I guess we could talk a little bit about the Braves. The Braves have had a lot of kind of a moving of the guard in more than one ways, including you. I'm sorry. What remind me the previous PA announcer's name?
Casey Motter.
Casey Mott. How long had he been there?
He started also with the same year that I did, 2007. Was his first year with the Braves. So
Really?
he was the voice of Turner Field and Truist Park for 15 years. So fans really got to know him, and fans really got to love him. I've seen the reactions between him and fans, and that I can only hope that I get the same kind of reception after a while, because he was one of the best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I can remember the voice of the Braves announcer, back in the Fulton County days of the 90s and early Turner Field days, but I couldn't tell you his name either. I don't know if you know.
Marshall Mann.
That's what his name was. Thank
Although
you.
he never did Turner Field. Marshall Mann was he
Really?
did in the 90s when the Braves first started getting really good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Man, that's brings back memories for, a lot. There's nothing like going into the, because when you're watching it on television and you hear the announcers, they do all the talking for you. But when you're actually there in the stadium, the PA announcer, he's giving you the information that you might not otherwise realize.
Yeah, that's true.
He's not doing a play-by-play, but
yeah, if you're keeping score, and I'm one of those few fans that I like to keep score when I go. So, if you lose your spot, then there's a PA announcer to help you. It's like, oh, the next batter's Joe Smith. So, yeah, I totally agree. He's one of the PA announcers, one of the many sights and sounds of the ballpark.
That's kind of losing an art form there. Nobody really keeps score, I imagine.
Don't keep score anymore. Yeah, it's sad.
Did you play any sports growing up or during college at all?
In college, no. I mean, besides intramurals,
Yeah.
I played baseball, of course, and basketball. I stopped playing baseball after I couldn't make the JV in 10th grade, and it's fine. I wasn't good enough. It's just one of those things, and I concentrated on band instead.
Yeah.
But I've always loved baseball. It was my first sport that I loved. Just wish I was better at it. Like I've been telling people, when I was 8, I always thought I'd be playing in the majors when I was 35 instead of announcing, but this is the next best thing.
Yeah, that's many a young boy's dream, including yours truly. I understand that. When I was 8 years old, I hope to be, playing right field for the Braves, just like Dale Murphy. Now I'm showing my age.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I don't. I'm too young to remember him playing. Unfortunately,
that's
but
okay. You did
I've seen the highlights.
great player. You didn't miss much, and by that I mean he swung and missed the ball a lot. We'll just say that much. Yeah, the man can
That's like
strike out as much
that's
as he
like
could hit.
that's like watching the game nowadays.
Yeah.
It's all strikeouts and home runs.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk a little shop then. Why not? While we're on it, how do you feel about some of the new rules that are coming into this season?
I was going to ask you about that. You said earlier that you're the purist, so I
Oh
was going to
man.
ask you what you thought. Well, I'm a little bit biased because we had these rules last year in the minors, so I'm
Ah.
I'm used to them, and I didn't like him at first either, but you get used to it. I mean, and the players will get used to it. I know there's a lot of news right now about. I know the Braves had a walk off time thing a couple days ago
The
against
big
the
news. Yeah.
Cubs. Yeah, the players will get used to it because they. I really do think that more average, like we'll call them fair weather fans, people that don't watch every day like you and me. They'll watch baseball more if the games are 2.5 hours instead of three. I mean, I hate that that's how it is, but that's just how it is.
Hmm.
Um, I'm also a baseball purist. I wish we didn't have to have a timer, but I got used
Right.
to it. I think it'll be fine.
Hmm. I was watching a show the other day, and they had, I'm trying to remember his name, an ESPN baseball guy, and I'm trying to remember his first name. Jason, was that his last name? I can't remember offhand. He was he was given some of the same things you're talking about. How seem to think that a lot of this is going to cut down on time. Like they want to get it down to like the 2 hour 30 minutes was what they think is the sweet spot.
Mhm.
Did you see that as well in your anecdotal experience with the you
Oh,
know
we were finishing games in 2 hours.
ah
I mean,
okay.
not all the time. I mean, you're always going to have 14 to 12 3 hour 50-minute games. You're always going to have one of those every once in a while, but we had more than once games finish in 2 hours and 10 minutes, and um, it's very very odd feeling, especially in the middle of July when the sun goes down at 9:30. You start a game at 7, and you walk out of the stadium to go home, and it's still light outside. I mean, it's pretty surreal,
Oh wow.
and it's
Yeah.
pretty. I mean, it's selfishly as someone that that works 75 games a year. Like it's nice to have an early night every once in a while. It just
Hmm.
is.
But it sounds like you might get a few more if this goes the way they hope it does.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Now, I do feel a little bit more differently about the runner at second base. That's a total different story.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that because total disclaimer, if you will. I'm in my older age, and now that I have kids, I've become less and less able to watch stuff and figure stuff out with baseball. I've been more just kind of the fair weathering in the last couple of years. How is that implemented, and what's been the result of it?
So it's just when we get to extra innings, and the idea is to, and I see where they were coming from with making it that way because they thought that games would end in 10 innings and go no more than 10 innings. If they had to go to extras, just one extra. Um, but what happens is you got to remember that both teams get the same benefit. So if you're getting both teams the same benefit of starting with a runner at second base, then if you only score one run in your half of the inning, then all it takes is one base hit for it to be tied right back up again by the home team in the bottom half of the inning. So
Right.
uh, we saw that many times in the minors where the home team will give up the go ahead run like the first batter of the top of the 10th, and then we'll tie it up the first batter in the bottom of the 10th, and then we'll end up playing at 11th anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So why not just start with runners empty? But again, at the same time, again, we got used to it. It's a part of the game to me now.
Yeah.
I hate that I'm saying that, but I think it's part of the game.
Yeah, I feel like I'm on the fence about it. I guess I understand it. I think that baseball I don't know. I mean, I've thought about this. I'm sitting here looking into the distance because I'm thinking to myself, what do I like about baseball? What do I not like about baseball? What are my purest feelings about it?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's just a game. It's no different than people going out there to play a game of pickup frisbee, you know. Um, but I tend to be. I'm such a purist that I think that we should go back to 140 something games in the Babe Ruth era.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that's I was thinking I tried to explain this to my wife because she's not a baseball fan, never grew up watching it really. Um, I like to tell people that I'm have Yankee sentiments when it comes to my sports fandom because baseball is my favorite sport, and New Englanders usually love baseball more than any other sport. A lot of times, not always, but
Yeah.
you know, I tend to like baseball the most, and then comes football. Whereas your average, Southern person, they're like, oh, I'm all about college football, and then I'll watch, some baseball.
Yeah.
Uh, but I try to explain to my wife, yeah, baseball is totally. There's no other sport that's like it. You play more than 6 months out of the year. You're
Oh yeah.
showing up at early February. If you're good, you go till mid October or longer.
Yeah. November nowadays.
Yeah, November, especially if there's something going on or some sort of weird thing happens. Um, Not to mention that baseball is a working man sport. So back in the day, this was like going to work for these guys during the day. They would play almost every day. That's how we got so many games. They just kept playing. It's not like, in some ways, I mean, don't get me wrong. As a baseball fan, the more baseball you love, but in some ways, it would almost be nice if we had it as a basketball type NBA schedule where
Sure.
absence makes the heart fonder. I think.
Every other day. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean NBA players I don't know how many they're around like what 90 games or something a year.
Something like 82, something like that. I think there are some days where I'm agreeing with you, and I'm like,
Yeah,
we can play every other day, but then again, when the Braves have an off day, you're you're like, all right, what am I supposed to do with myself tonight? Like you don't know what to do with yourself. So
right, right.
uh,
Yeah, and that's the and I told her that would obviously never happen. Maybe one day they would skim some games off of it, but to do away with tons of games would just be you would have it would just completely ruin all of baseball stats. So
yeah, well, the COVID year where we played 60, that was bizarre.
that was bizarre, wasn't it?
Wasn't
Yeah.
nearly enough games. Then again, well, I don't know what more they could have done. I mean, they played about as much as they could.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that our championship game? I'm losing my memory here. Was that the Braves championship or was that did they
No, well, the Braves made the NLCS against the Dodgers
okay.
in Arlington that year, and they lost in seven, unfortunately.
So Dodgers were 2020 champs, right?
Yeah, Dodgers were 2020. Yeah, and then the
Right.
Braves were the next year. Yeah.
Right, right. Okay, gotcha.
Mhm.
Gotcha. That's when I was young, I could name off almost every World Series championship winner up until the late 90s or so. I mean,
Well,
how I then of course we go into the 90s, the salad days of the Braves 90s days, which I can easily remember, your 1991 all the way up through Bobby Cox's last season.
yeah,
Those are quite special times in Braves country, as we like to call it.
nothing quite like it. 14 straight. Nothing,
Right.
nothing quite like it.
And looking back too, I mean that first season in '91 was, and we'll wrap it up soon because I guess we could talk all night about
Yeah, we could.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
We both got things to do.
Absolutely. That '91 season though was quite tremendous, and looking back, we had no idea that it was going to go on. Um, just continue on. Like you just thought, okay, it was like any other team. You're just having your cool fluke season, and they just kept being good and kept staying good. And then '95 came, and that's like a pinnacle. And even
Hmm.
though they lost many games and seasons after that, they kept so consistent for so long that I mean, nobody doesn't think about Atlanta thanks to those teams. You can't say Atlanta's not a baseball town without. Nobody would say, "Oh, Atlanta's not a baseball town," had it not been for those teams.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Although, I would have said it anyway because I know that there were diehard fans that came out to Braves games I mean, I know there weren't a ton of them, but there were diehards that came out when they were truly awful in the 80s. I know because my dad tells me about it.
Mm.
Yeah. I was born in 87, so I missed most of those years.
Oh yeah. That's all right though. You got to enjoy the good history will show those guys, the John Smoltz, Maddox, those will be of that generation. Those are like the old Yankees heroes, Lefty, Williams, and history will show that that was their generation. Because when you think of the '90s and early 2000s, you think John Smoltz, Tom Glavine,
Greg Maddox.
Yeah, Greg Maddox, all those guys, Chipper Jones. I mean, yes, there were other great pitchers on other teams, but that was just such a great. I mean, obviously we're biased because we're Braves fans, but
I totally agree. No, that I mean, they were just like Yankee heroes, except you're right. They just happened to be pitchers, not hitters. Why the Braves won games like 3-2 all the time.
Yeah, totally, including their World Series win. What? Let's talk about one more thing before we wrap it up here. Who is coming in now that Skip, I always call him Skip. Chip Carey has left the Atlanta's announcing team. Who's coming in to replace him?
Brandon Gadan. I'm sorry if I'm getting his first name wrong, but I'm pretty sure his last name is Gadan. He called Georgia Tech athletics. I don't know if it's football or athletics in general. At least football. He was with Tech for a few years in the last decade, and then he went and did Fox and the Big Ten. Back home. So yeah, I must admit I didn't know him much by name. I know him by voice.
Okay.
When I heard his voice, I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard him plenty on Fox. But he's very good. I'm very excited to have him here and calling games with Frank Coor. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be very, very weird without a Carey calling a Braves game. Has it been done in over 30 years? Probably not. 40 years.
Right.
No, not a Carey calling a Braves game. So.
Oh man.
But he is very good. I'm very much looking forward to having him do games for us.
Well, that's always good to have an Atlanta pedigree guy to come in and be a new guy for it. Yeah. Although I would, Don Sutton was one of my favorites as well, and he wasn't really a Braves guy when he first came in.
Yeah, but he became one. We made him one.
Absolutely, yeah.
Stephen Pete made him one.
Yeah. Did you ever have a favorite announcer of all the old Braves announcers?
If I had to pick one, it'd probably be Skip. But they were all four of them are great. Remember, they used to switch in the middle of the game. Two of them would start on TV, and then they would switch in the fifth inning, and the radio guys would come on. So we got to hear all four of them every night, and so that's why I loved all four of them. But if I had to pick one, probably Skip.
Yeah, mine was always Ernie Johnson Sr. My favorite tandem was him with oh my gosh, the name's leaving me here. The professor, as we called him back in the day.
Pete Van Wieren.
Thank you. Pete Van Wieren and Ernie Johnson Sr., me and a couple of friends, we always thought they were the coolest little, Ernie was older, but, up until he retired, those two were a great duo, if you will, in the booth.
Yeah, I'm a little bit too young to remember Ernie calling games live, but I've seen plenty of videos of him calling games, and he was great.
Absolutely.
His son's great too.
Yeah. He's become a legend in his own right in a lot of ways.
Doing the NBA, yeah.
Yep. Well, Kevin, I'm going to let you go. I do appreciate it. We've got to cover a lot of stuff. Maybe if you're up for it, I'll have you come on at some point again, and we'll do a little follow-up and see how things are going. Sure.
Anytime. It was a pleasure. This is actually my very first podcast, so I hope I did okay.
Absolutely. You did great. We'll have it out there on the YouTubes for everybody to witness for you.
Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you. And if you ever want to do this again, maybe like All-Star break or something like that, just let me know.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. We can do a little follow-up and see how things are going. All right, Kevin, thanks a lot. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And have a great day. And thank you for joining us on Talk of the Now podcast.